When it comes to quarterback Jared Goff of the Detroit Lions, he is known for a couple of things, but being feisty is definitely not one of them. And yesterday, in an interview, Jared Goff came out swinging against Detroit sports media, and we're going to talk about it in this episode, folks, so stay tuned.
What are we? What makes us what we are and what we're going to be? It's grit. It's what we started with last year, guys. Doesn't matter if you have one ass cheek and three toes. I will beat your ass.
Can definitely compete with the big dogs.
10-5 end zone touchdown Detroit Lions.
You guys are unbelievable, man. I'm telling you.
We are driven by Detroit.
Hello, Lions fans, and I just want to say to everybody, welcome on back to yet another episode of MCM Motor City Mania. I'm your host, David T. Pike, and as always, we're diving on in. So, here's the thing, folks. Not going to take a whole lot of time on this one. Again, this is a pretty straightforward segment, not really going to beat around the bush. But I'm going to just say this. When it comes to media, especially the media coverage for sports in freaking Detroit, there has been what I would call a long-standing tradition, a long-standing behavior pattern for a lot of media coverage that talks about sports here in Detroit. And that coverage is usually been, unfortunately to say, has been negative. It has not exactly been the most positive. Now, for anybody that has been with me since I first started doing this nonsense all the way back on DLF for the Detroit Lions forums, one of the things that I was particularly big about was railing against the negative media pundits, people like Woodward Sports, people that were all about just trying to tear down the Detroit Lions, trying to say the Lions were no good, just trying to put any sort of negative spin they could on the Detroit Lions. It always seemed to be an issue that just never seemed to it never seemed to die. That was part of the old SOL mindset. That was part of, it's the same old Lions. They're never going to figure it out. They perpetually stink, da-da-da-da-da-da. And we heard about it all the damn time. However, though, as a podcaster for the Detroit Lions, I also know that it's not just the Lions that have received a fair share of, the negativity. There have been times in the past where the Pistons have caught some of that flack. Also the Tigers. Sometimes even the Red Wings have caught it. Again, when it comes to Detroit sports media, it always seems to be that whenever there is something of a negative connotation, there is something of a negative news value, it always gets overblown. It always gets overhyped. It always gets talked about perpetually much more than anything of a positive nature. And yesterday, Jared Goff sounded off. He actually kind of came out swinging against some people with inside Detroit sports media because he had had enough. And to be entirely honest, I can't blame the guy. I can't blame Jared Goff because what Jared Goff specifically stated yesterday about the Detroit sports media, I'm just going to be freaking honest here, he hit the damn nail on the head. And we're going to talk about some of the comments that he made because let's take a look at some of these comments. Jared Goff said specifically about this when he was talking about the whole, nonsense that happened after the NFC Conference Championship game. I'm going to be reading the comment off of my phone because I have the article up on my phone, and then I'm going to put it up on the screen so that way you guys can read it along with me as I read it off. Here's what the comment was. Jared Goff said this. He said, that moment kind of went like viral for whatever reason. I wasn't trying to be rude to the guy. I think that's our own beat reporter that's been with us for 3 years. You haven't been in San Francisco. You know what our team looks like. Why do we gotta talk about how good their players are? Talk about how good our players are. That's how I felt about it. And again, what Jared Goff is talking about here is that there was an incident where apparently a beat reporter and him started kind of talking about a conversation, and it went back to the conference championship game. And the way that the beat reporter was kind of taking the questions with Goff was rather than focusing on the Lions' accomplishments, rather than focusing on how good the Lions had become, how much of a journey they had been on, and the fact that they had gotten to the conference championship game, more what this beat writer was apparently getting on with Goff was about was, oh, well, how good do you think that the 49ers were? How much of, a disappointment was it that you guys weren't able to match how good of a team that was? And was more focusing on how accomplished and how good and how everyone looked up to the 49ers rather than focusing on the team that he covers and actually focusing on the players that the Lions have. Now, I'm going to say this. For me, I'm not going to say that Jared Goff is 100% truthful about this, though I have absolutely no reason to doubt that he's lying. I have no reason to believe that Goff is lying. But for me, the thing I find kind of weird about this whole situation is why a beat writer for the Detroit Lions, supposedly, rather than wanting to talk about the Lions, who right now are one of the most hyped up, one of the most popular teams, considered one of the best teams in the NFL, instead of taking recognition of that, would want to keep focusing the conversation with Goff about the 49ers. That to me is just very, very weird. It's very awkward because it's like if you're a beat reporter for the Lions, I would expect that you'd want to talk about the Lions and then talk about a little bit about the opponent itself so that way you have a little bit of both in both of the conversation. But it seemed like this reporter was more interested in talking about the Niners. Now, what I also think is really weird about this is that, again, the guy that Goff is talking about here, it seemed like what he was trying to do, at least according to what I'm reading from Goff's response and other things I'm reading, the best way I can describe it, it seemed like what this guy was trying to do was kind of, in essence, poke the bear. Like he was trying to poke and trying to goad Jared Goff and to give him something, and Goff was just not wanting to bite. Goff was not trying to go that way, and the reporter really just wasn't taking no for an answer. Because as we continue down this gravy train, Jared Goff kind of further went on with this whole point. He then said, are we privileged to play this game because of the 49ers having a bunch of good players? He's talking about the conversation he had with the reporter. Is that what you're saying? So I was like, okay, Amon-Ra St. Brown was first-team All-Pro. Penei Sewell was first-team All-Pro. Frank Ragnow, Sam Laporta. You want me to keep going? I know they have a lot of good players. So do we. I know they're really good. So are we. So again, what is Goff trying to do here? Well, let's think about it. Goff is the leader of the team, the leader of the players at least. He is the quarterback, which means the players look to him for direction outside of the coach. So that means they're taking kind of their marching orders, they're taking their cues from what Jared Goff is doing. What Jared Goff is trying to tell this beat reporter, at least from what Goff is saying, is listen, I understand the 49ers have a lot of good players, but why are you not talking about our good players? Why are you trying to make it look like the 49ers are on some sort of pedestal that we can't hope to attain? We have good players. We got to the conference championship. We matched up against these guys. We almost beat those guys. But why are you trying to make it sound like we don't have any good players and that they do, and that somehow we were just, lucky to be in their presence, like they're just something that we can't ever attain to? That's what I'm getting from Goff here. And it's like, dude, Goff has the right mindset because it's like, wait a minute here, back up, hold up a second here. The Lions were up at halftime to where it looked like the Lions were about to freaking steamroll the 49ers. And most people that were watching that game at halftime thought the Lions were well on their way to their first Super Bowl. And again, at the very end of the game, the Lions only lost by 3 points. They were literally, as I've said multiple times, a whisker away from getting to the Super Bowl. So the fact that, from what Goff is saying, is that this beat reporter was trying to make it more about the 49ers and how good they are, and that the Lions, well, you know what, you guys were just kind of there. How does it feel to lose to such a really good team? It's like, well, we're a good team too. We have good players too. Why aren't you talking about us? Why are you always putting the focus on them? But again, Goff didn't stop there. Apparently, I'm just going to say this. Whoever got under Goff's skin on this one, they really lit a fire under him because he literally came out swinging on this in terms of the verbiage. Because Goff went further. He then said, I have this, and I probably need to drop it pretty soon because I'm hopefully going to be in Detroit for a very long time. But I have this thing with our local media where they almost like to relish in negativity at times. And maybe that's what gets clicks and that's what sells. But it's no longer what they need to live in. Hey guys, we have a good team. We've had success. We can be happy about that. We can celebrate that, not constantly having to write about how we're constantly the underdog. Teams are going to be gunning for us now. We won the division and all that. And I'm probably overthinking it in my head because it's the chip on my shoulder and the competitor in me. But in that moment, I was just giving that guy a hard time. I actually really like him. So, okay, let's put that whole that whole phrase into context. What Goff is trying to say there very, very clearly is that, yes, And I agree with Jared Goff, at least in the point of this, is that yes, when it comes to Detroit sports media, when it comes to the main media writers, it comes to the main media conglomerates and outlets, they have focused very, very much on the negative aspects of things. Because, again, as much as I hate to say it, that has been the standard norm, just what people have been doing here in Detroit for a long time. There hasn't been nearly as much positive to write about as there is with negative. And the problem is that the longer you get into a kind of a rhythm on something, the longer you get into that status quo, the harder it is to break out of it. But what Goff is also trying to say is like, listen, those are the old days. We have a good team now. We've had success. We've won a division crown. We've won 2 playoff games. We've gotten to the conference championship game. We have good players. There's a lot of reason to be high, to be high on the success that we have, to be optimistic, to be hopeful, to have pride in the program that we have built. Why are we still focusing on things that are not necessarily focusing on that, but rather on, well, what about this team? How come you weren't able to match them? Is it because that they're better than you, or you don't have enough of this, or that you guys kind of look up to them and you don't think you're on their level? Whatever the case might be. But the other thing that I want to point out here is Goff at the very end said, listen, I really like the guy. I really like whoever the beat writer is. Obviously, he didn't mention a name. But the point of the matter is Goff's not going at this like trying to personally attack whoever he's referring to. And he's not trying to personally take shots at the guy, or rather the media. What he's simply saying is like, listen, you guys are continuing to go on this negative trend here. There's no reason to continue to be negative. There's no reason to keep looking at the Lions like they were from freaking 15, 20 years ago. Let's take a look at the Lions for what they are. Let's take a look at our players for what they are. It's a damn good football team. It's a team of pride. It's a team of grit. It's a team that has been built and cut its teeth on Dan Campbell's message and ideology of, listen, we are going to work hard, we are going to play hard, and we are going to do everything we can to win. And that is exactly what Dan Campbell, Jared Goff, and all these other stars that the Lions have had and continue to have are doing right now. They have taken a 3-13-1 team 3 years ago to a 12-5 team that was, as I said, one whisker away from getting to the Super Bowl. Why can't we focus on that for some of these people that are sports writers or sports media analysts and focus on that, like I'm saying, rather than the negativity of, oh, well, are we ever going to get back? Are we going to be able to do this? Are we going to be able to do that? Let's focus on the positives, folks. Let's focus on what's good about the Detroit Lions. Rather than, oh, well, can they do it? Will they do it? I fully expect they can. I fully expect they will, because there's no reason for me to think that they won't. Dan Campbell has led us here. Jared Goff has led us here. Brad Holmes has led us here. And all the other players we have on the roster have led us here. Last time I checked, most, if not all of them, are still with us. So why are we doubting the ability for us to make it there again? Why are we doubting the ability for us to win? I don't understand that. That's the question Jared Goff is trying to put out there with these statements. Why are we focusing on the negative rather than the positive? And again, I think Jared Goff, like I said, he hit the damn nail on the head. Stop focusing on the negative. Focus on the positive. So again, pretty straightforward segment. Didn't want to take up a whole lot of time with this. Just wanted to put my thoughts out there. So with that being said, I just want to say to everybody, thank you all for watching in another episode of MCM Motor City Mania. If you like what you saw, by all means, I highly encourage you all to watch the next episode. Also encourage you all to do one of these 3 things: like, comment, and subscribe. If by chance you subscribed in the past and forgot to do so at the time, or you just subscribed and not had a chance to do so, again, highly encourage you all to subscribe. Again, we're so close to 6,000 subscribers. Let's get that number there so that way we can push on to 7,000. We're almost back to where DLF was. Let's keep going forward. And I encourage y'all, after you subscribe, please make sure you turn on that bell notification icon as well, so that way you never miss any more content that I push out. Also encourage y'all to share this content with your Lions friends and family members. Share it here on YouTube, share it on Twitter, share it on Facebook, share it anywhere and everywhere you can with everybody and anybody that you can. The more we can share it, the greater the channel spreads, the greater the channel grows. And with that being said, to everybody, I hope you all are having a great day. Hope you all are having a blessed day. Hope you all got something that makes you happy and makes you smile. And I hope you all enjoyed the content. And with that being said, to everybody, just want to say God bless. And until the next time we meet, I'll see you all in the next episode.